Hey everyone, and welcome to the midweek review. Got a few things to go over, so let's get right into it. Starting off with, let's look at futures. Starting off here with the ES. We do have a low compression squeeze setting up for this one with some bullish momentum, but if we look at this last trading week, we have just been trading in a pretty tight range here. Not really moving too much out of this with not too much action going on. So I think this squeeze is just kind of setting up. So I think there could be some more consolidation within the market before this squeeze either decides to fire to the upside or to the downside. But as of now, it's looking like it is in a consolidation stage, but it is still holding this 8 EMA nicely. So we'll see if we can keep doing that throughout the rest of the week and maybe into next. The Qs are looking a little bit different. They are looking very solid here. We have our squeeze, we have our bullish momentum. You can see here, came down to the 21, bounced off of it, came down to the 21, bounced off it, and then once again came down to that 21 and bounced off of it. And now with today closing above that 1 ATR, I am looking for this squeeze to fire to the long side as we have our stacked DMAs. So this one is looking solid for the rest of the week and hoping that it can push, if not up here to these all-time highs once again. The Dow got hit a little harder today. We do still have a nice squeeze here. We have our stacked DMAs, but we are getting a little more bearish momentum into it. It did close right at that 21 EMA, so tomorrow will be much more telling if it bounces off of that level or if it actually rejects that level, and may look to go short on that if it rejects it, but if not, once again, this one still is setting up nicely to the long side. As I've said before, the Russell is a different story than the other indices, so we had it close above this 21 EMA here, and it may look like we had this daily squeeze setting up. It may look like it was going to continue going to the upside and maybe even fire to the upside, but it quickly rejected that 21 EMA, and now we actually have had 3 days closing below it. And yesterday it went up, touched it, got rejected. Today went up and touched it and got rejected. So I am still very bearish on the Russell and small caps, and we're actually hoping for this squeeze to roll over and have it fire to the downside, where we can see the prices fall back down to this -2 ATR, where we also have a few support levels on it. So looking for it to hit these levels to the downside. Now looking at a few stocks for the rest of the week with potential setups. As I said before, the Qs are setting up wonderfully, and then Apple is actually setting up here as well. We have a nice daily squeeze setting up. We have our stacked EMAs. We are trading above that 21 EMA and actually above that 8 EMA. So ideally for an entry, I would like it to come back down to that 8 EMA or even better, that 21 before getting long. But if the Qs don't roll over for some reason and they fire to the upside, obviously Apple, a big part of the Qs, will continue to the upside as well, and you could see all-time highs with this one in the near future. The next one I'm looking at to the upside is Twitter. It has been holding this 21 EMA very nicely. We have a daily squeeze here setting up as well. We have our stacked DMAs. Overall, this setup is looking ideal to the upside with everything that it is showing me. So throughout the week, we'll be watching this one as well to see if we can keep holding that 21. Now with semiconductors absolutely just cranking these last few days, especially AMD due to their earnings that pushed them up to crazy all-time highs, and they've just been going. You can see that the semiconductors actually had a squeeze fire to that upside and is now sitting at that 2 ATR range, which is a place to always be hesitant of. It could revert back down to that mean, but within the semiconductors, I really do like Texas Instruments. We have our daily squeeze setting up here. We have our bullish momentum. We have our stacked DMAs. Only thing we need to look for is another pullback down to this 21 EMA before going long in it, as it is a little more extended than I'd like it to be to get an ideal entry. So we'll be watching this one throughout the rest of the week to see if we can get the entry, and if not, maybe next week. I know my watch list has always, for the last 2 weeks, had Walmart in it, but it's still um, holding its trend. I just ideally want another fall to this 21 before getting long on it. I did miss this entry here, which would have been ideal, which was unfortunate, but that happens with trading, so we'll always move on to the next trade. Now I have a few that I actually am looking short at. The first one being 3M. So here we were having these closes below the 21 EMA. Yesterday we had a nice pop on it, but kind of rejecting that 1 ATR. And now today closing right back down below that 21 EMA. We have our bearish histogram showing on the squeeze, with the squeeze looking to fire to the downside because we have no stacked DMAs. And the thing I'm going to be watching closely with this one is if the Dow can reject that 21 and keep falling, or if it bounces and goes up off of it. If it bounces, 3M should bounce here as well, but if it keeps falling like it did today, we should see 3M fire that squeeze to the downside and hopefully get it to around that -2 ATR of about 192.50. So this one is looking good to the downside if we can get the Dow to follow as well. The other one I'm looking to the downside are banks, actually. If we look at the financial sector quick, um, I know we have a squeeze with bullish momentum raising and raising, but I found a level at $37 that it is having a very, very hard time to break. And with this squeeze setting up and getting that bullish momentum and it's still not being able to break, I am actually looking for this potentially tomorrow to have its first dark blue candle, and this may actually start to roll over to the downside because we do not have any stacked EMAs. So I'm watching this sector very closely to see if it can either surpass that level or just keep getting rejected. We are holding this 21 EMA, which is still bullish, and there's nothing wrong with the structure here, but just this level I am looking at, it cannot break it. So we will see maybe tomorrow if we get a close below that 21. And that leads me to then JP Morgan here. We are seeing this close a few times below the 21. We have no stacked DMAs, and we now have bearish momentum on the squeeze. So if XLF can start to roll over, then I'm looking to this one to the downside because this one should follow with that down to these lower ATR levels. So this is the midweek review. Hopefully you all enjoy and have a great rest of your week trading.